companions, weaving maestro Francisco Orzua and Max Bird over here, a Mexican parrot. Janice Kimball will read the chapters titled Clipped Wings and Ponderings of the Soul, followed by the preface of her recently released book, Three in a Cage. Janice Kimball, MFA, a visual artist and writer, owns Aztec Art and Weaving Studios in West Ajijic. Her articles and short stories have been published in the Ojo del Lago and in Mexiconnect and Lake Chapala Insights online magazines, as well as the Lake Chapala Review, where her monthly column, Art Talk, appears. Three in a Cage is her first novel. And I may mention that these beautiful weavings are her designs and Francisco's handiwork. A perfect background for her story. Excuse me. Now Jim Tipton, master poet of the Lakeside, will further introduce Janice and the reading.
Thanks, Margaret. My dear friend Janice Kimball, in addition to being so beautiful, is also quite multi-talented. As Margaret mentioned, she does write for all of the local publications. Some of you read regularly her column Art Talk in Lake Chapala Review, for example. And Margaret mentioned the other ones, two online magazines, Mexico Connect, Living at Lake Chapala, and also for Ojo del Lago. And those talents also include talent in art for decades as an artist and a master designer of wonderful weavings that are executed by her companion Francisco Orzua. And some of these are done on a 400-year-old Spanish loom. How many have been to her studios in West Ajijic? It's down near the turnoff to Danza del Sol. And you just backtrack a short ways. You'll see a wonderful display of the currently available weavings and paintings. Maestro Francisco is actually the creator of the tapestries themselves, and he has with him the third character in the book, Three in a Cage, Max Bird. And Max Bird, what did you think of those jokes? Okay. I think I will read 3 or 4 paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs from the review I wrote of Janice's book, which appears in the current Ojo del Lago. Three in a Cage. And here's Max's picture. Max is, did I mention the publicity director? The director? He's the publicity director. Is this right, Max? Hey, is this correct? And here he is. He's the publicity director for Aztec Studios. Three in a Cage is about creating family. It is also about loss, longing, survival, injustice, adaptation, rescue, and love. Longtime local artist Janice Kimball is the creator and owner of Aztec Art and Weaving Studios in West Ajijic, where she lives with her family, the other 2 characters in this delightful story. Mayan weaving maestro Francisco Orzua, and the lovable Max Bird, a rescued Mexican parrot. Around 3 years ago, as Janny, Francisco, and Max Bird were well on their way to, quote, rescuing each other, unquote, she says in the book. As they were well on their way to rescuing each other and creating their own world, Janny realized that she needed to write a book. She would write about what they built together, quote, from our lost identities, unquote. This might become instruction of sort, so that others could learn to live outside the confines of traditional thinking and thus discover, quote, how to fly without wings, unquote. Beautiful stuff, isn't it? This, then, is that story. It is filled with touching scenes, with often remarkable conversations between the 3 characters. Many of these conversations are about the longing each has in his own way to fly and to be understood and to be loved without conditions by the 2 other members of this little family. Francisco, Max, Janice. Okay. Turn you on? I see my black eye here. Okay, try it. Say something.
Am I on? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, good. Are you on, Francisco? Yes. Are you on?
Yes. Yes.
Are you? No. Francisco on?
Okay.
Yes. Hear me? Yes. Yes.
Okay, say something, Francisco.
Oh, see you everybody. Hola. Welcome to Chapala Sociedad.
What is this?
Okay, he's on. Okay, I'm going to read from chapter 3, Cliff Wings, and I have problems with my legs, so I sit part of the time and stand part of the time. I had forgotten how to fly, Lupita. Max, I had forgotten how to fly. Max said, looking for the truth, yet hoping she would not expose it. Am I still a bird if I can't fly? If I'm not a bird, then what am I? Max sat waiting for Janny's reply, but she didn't need to make one. As Max had known the truth since the day before, that as sure as the full moon would appear each month, Francisco would hold him as if in embrace, covering his head against his chest so Max could not see. And Janny would stretch out one of his wings. This worked real well in rehearsal. And Janny stretched out one of his wings, and then the other, and silently clipped off his wing feathers. Then Janny returned the scissors to where she had them hidden. And the interlude would end, and they would continue on with their day as if nothing at all had happened. When Max, eyes bared, had at last solemnly witnessed his own clipping, he would not first accept the reality of it, as he still preferred to blame his inability to fly on himself rather than accept the fact that those he loved had altered him. He had witnessed the sorrow in Francisco's soft eyes and the look of anguish on Janny's face when she watched her own fingers let go of the cut ends of his feathers and watched them flutter into the wastebasket. Hiding the truth does not work because in the end it requires lies that keep feeding on themselves, Janny said at the time, as a simple statement of fact, concealing her desire to hold Max and to tell him how sorry she was, wanting the three of them to be able to cry together, but knowing they needed her to be their anchor. Janny had wanted to continue to deny the clipping of Max in her own familiar way, but the existence of his reality tugged at them like an undertow. Truth held up in front of a mirror can scorch the eyes. A family's secrets are often kept out of love, because to reveal them would be to risk all the trust they had formed and all that would follow. But secrets held so close endlessly plague the memory and ensnarl it in a tangle of traps.
You did right now. Time, think, Johnny. Max is an adult now. It was time for him to announce the truth.
Max was in his element, living in the middle of an artist's studio. That is, if there ever was an element. That is, if there ever was an element for a bird caught on the edge of a reality foreign to the wild world he had come from. It was Maestro Francisco's too. Having lost the years of his life between 14 and 42 was aggravatingly for Janny, just now learning how to screw in a light bulb. Janny understood cages, their elusiveness, their lack of corners to get trapped in, the seductiveness of their totality, and their lack of a back door. This awareness was a great common denominator among the three of them. They rarely wanted to leave their cage, their unique environment insulating them against the thrust of the life outside that did not suit them. They preferred to view the world beyond as if seen through a veil. Cages come in all different forms, sizes, and descriptions. The one Max Bird lived in, together with Janny and Francisco, was therefore not the exception to any rule, but was on the fringe of what a cage description could entail. Janny designed their art gallery and weaving studios just for them, a unique place where they lived, and although when she ran into another artist, she sometimes referred to it as environmental art, the three of them knew it was really their cage, containing a nest that gave them the utmost satisfaction. Francisco sometimes thought Janny had designed their lived workspace to keep her confined as if she too were a bird, to keep those confined with her to herself, so that she would have company on the creative ventures that occupied her mind. Francisco was satisfied with this arrangement, but on occasion restlessness would overtake Max. "I dream, oh how I dream," Max muttered as the sun began to set. Francisco held Max securely on his rare visit to swing with him on the rooftop hammock, a venture for Max that always left Janny very nervous. She knew that Max loved them, but also that he had romantic dreams about flying off into the heavens, the lead bird in a flock of those migrating, like the pelicans that migrated across the lake every year. She noticed Max as he watched the birds in the distance, the ridges where his wings attached to his shoulders, rising and falling in tune to the beat of their wings as they descended, soaring up into the heavens, migrating north in the spring, living out their destiny. Janny would let him go if he could do that, but he was not a pelican. He was a parrot, one from a different climate than where he now lived, a species accustomed to heat and humidity, living among the canopy of trees, yet needing the midday sun. Birds that grouped, socializing with their families, never venturing far from their place of birth. Janny felt Max needed to understand his history as a parrot, to know that if his wings grew back with his impulsive nature, he would fly off and Francisco would not be there to put him inside at night and cover him up so he would be warm, and in a short time he would die, and they would suffer the loss of the most unique of all parrots, and it would leave a hole in their hearts. "I wish I could be a pelican," Max confided to Francisco, "that those that migrate across the lake on the far horizon, all coming in group together yet free, the wind picking up the skirts of their tail feathers as they're about to land on the water, tickling the edges of their concealed down. When I think about it, I get so excited that if you were not holding me tight, I would attempt to fly off this mirador at this very moment, even knowing I would go straight down into the neighbors' nesting chickens, even knowing how much I would miss you and miss the joy of how you hold me as we swing on this hammock above the whole world." What do you dream about, Maestro? Max inquired as Francisco, with his forefinger, flipped up the feathers on the back of Max's neck.
Why, I dream about becoming a parrot like you. The envelope in another arms at night have my name scratched to wash someone else was the dishes to receive attention every time. I quite to be even the title of public relations director and get 2 tons on the publicity that you do.
And live in a cage like me? Max said. You've got to be kidding.
I'm not. Are you squatting about your cage in the garden? The one downstairs with no door. Door? Real cages have doors. Max, or are you squawking about your antique cage inside? Where Johnny covers you while a special setting through at night, the one that I remove after you first feed in the morning. You know, the case that you are so anxious to go into when you get sleepy. I would be very content if I was covered up in a special blanket and took in at night.
Max speaks. If I had arms, I would help you with the dishes, Maestro, and I would tuck you in, and I would hug you. I would hug you a lot, Max explained as he leaned into Francisco, stretching out a wing in an attempt to comfort him.
We are lucky, Maxie. Sometimes I feel so alone, even though I know I am not, because I had you to hold in my lonely times.
Max's feathers popped up in a display of happiness on hearing Francisco's words as he confided it to him. I like it so much when we sneak up here past Janny, up high in the sky where she does not want me to be. Okay. Gracias, Francisco. Besos para perrito. Well, thank you. Thank Jim. I didn't thank Jim, too. And it's just you and me now. Because it's just me up here and you guys out there. I'm reading from chapter 17, Ponderings of the Soul. And I just want you to know that that this book, it has funny stories interwoven in it. Stories that folks like you and me, inspired gringos that come in and do hilarious things. And so I'm skipping that whole middle part of the book, and we're going into chapter 17, where I'm going to talk about exploring relationships as they apply to the whole world. And so 17 Ponderings of the Soul. Janny set Max on his chair in the great room, plopped down on the sofa, and swung her legs around to hang over one side. Max sat on the chair's back, searching for fleas that did not exist. Janny had always been so predictably unpredictable. So easy to divert. So, well, simple. Max studied a woven serpent hanging at him from the far wall. The bells hanging over the open stairway jangled as Francisco came up the stairs. They signaled to Janny that someone was approaching. Max, you have the strangest look on your face, Francisco commented. Why are you staring at that serpent tapestry in such a strange way? Max took one last dig at an imaginary flea and flew up onto Francisco's shoulder. Why do we weave so many serpents and crocodiles, cougars and cougars and warriors and other scary things. Why don't we ever weave doves and angels? Max asked Janny. Because we aren't the doves and angels, Janny replied. I used to weave lots of doves, but Janny said it wasn't healthy, Francisco added with a wry smile. So now we weave eagles and egrets and all kinds of interesting creatures from Mexico's ancient past. I think the world we live in is interesting enough, Janny, Max chattered. Sometimes the human world is too interesting. I think we should weave flowers and palm trees and jacarandas, yes, shaped like huge open umbrellas with their purple blossoms hanging off their end, and parrots, yes, lots of parrots, living under it, singing songs of love and building nests all over the place, and hearts, Francisco added, with the faces of Isabel and Elliot inside of them, to hang at the end of my loom. Maybe I should step out of the room, Janny replied with a straight face, so the two of you can decide how to run things around here. And while you are at it, you can figure out how you're going to pay for the next shipment of material and pay for the groceries and utilities as well. No, Janny, please stay, Francisco said. I'm happy weaving whatever you want. All of our tapestries are beautiful to me. But maybe it is a good idea to understand why you find our pre-Hispanic culture so fascinating. Thank you, Francisco. I need to take a break right now, but you are right. We do need to talk about the tapestries, but a little bit later, okay? When Janny left, Francisco got tough with Max. You're making qualifications about your acceptance of Janny. You need to decide if you are in or you are out. Loving a person in part is no love at all. Now let's go downstairs. I need to work on my loom. Francisco tossed the loom shuttle back and forth, making its faint Tibetan-like tingle as he had a heart-to-heart talk with Max, who sat up high on the loom's overhead beam, looking down on the tapestry being woven below. Humans have many different facets, Francisco explained. What are facets, Maestro? Let's see, Max. I will give you an example. Think of a person as if he or she were a jewel. In Janny's case, a fine one, maybe a diamond. The stone itself would be her soul. The value placed on the stone would depend on its purity. It is likely that stone will later have facets cut into it. These will be polished to create the prisms that make it sparkle in the light. The more finely cut, the more valuable the jewel becomes. I bet Janny has lots of cuts, Francisco. The reason a jewel sparkles is because each prism reflects light from a different source. A person can only be responsible for being the caretaker of their soul. They do not have control over what is cut into their stone, and it is debatable whether the soul has control over what shimmers from its many colors, as each prism reflects light from a different source. The prisms form a collective brilliance. As a matter of fact, the stone itself never sees what it reflects. But that light is never turned inward. A person's inner soul is something that must be sensed. If the soul is bad, no matter how brilliantly it sparkles, a wise person will know it. A good soul has a value beyond estimate. Wow, that sure gives a bird like me a lot to think about, Francisco. I do know Janny has a good soul, I just know it, Max replied. But aren't those serpents we have hanging on our walls part of what her stone reflects? If we got rid of them, maybe Janny's soul would be happier. Why, yes, Max. I suppose it would change the reflection given off from one of her prisms to one that could be more pleasing. I hadn't thought of that. But on the other hand, don't you think our interference might make her soul constricted? Look, maestro, are you trying to confuse me? Every time I get one of your ideas straight, you mess it up again. No, I'm not trying to confuse you, Max, but still, you must be more patient with Janny. Think of how good she has been to your soul. Gee, maestro, I do have a soul, don't I? Do all birds have a soul, or just me? How about Elliot and Isabella? Do they have souls? Do all living creatures have souls, or just the ones that belong to our family? What do you think, Max? I think a heart that beats must have a soul, but where is it located? Since I'm small, does that mean my soul is less valuable than your soul? That a big person's soul is better than a small person's soul? Whoa, Max. These are difficult questions. Souls don't have a size. They can be found or not found in any creature. Souls transcend all earthly things. The aura of their spirits can't be held in the palm of a hand because there's nothing of matter to hold. So their size cannot be measured by a ruler or weighed like a cup of flour. It can't be denied, however, that a soul lies inside of me and you and most living creatures. Maybe we create them. Maybe they are a gift from the heavens. We don't know. We are just humans or birds. We can't know everything. Sounds like an interesting discussion, Janny said as she entered the room. It's interesting, all right, Max replied. First, Francisco told me the soul was a stone, and then he told me it was a spirit. Which am I to believe? Do they cancel each other out? I was trying to explain a concept to Max in a way a bird brain could understand, Francisco snapped, fed up with answering Max's questions and then having his answers critiqued. Hey, what's this with name-calling? Janny said. This is not a cantina. Max, Francisco is just trying to help you. What he does is use metaphors. He uses a thing to represent a concept so you can picture it in your mind. It is a very good way to explain the unexplainable. A metaphor is also a handy figure of speech to use when what you feel and what you think are not in agreement. Got it, Janny, Max lied. Feathers, he thought. Janny is even more confusing than the maestro. Good, Janny replied. I love metaphors. That's what I find so fascinating about the ancient indigenous peoples. They live their life in metaphor. Their pictographs were in metaphor. Their gods, even themselves. They believed they were vessels that carried spirits which would live on forever after they died, that their bodies would be magically reincarnated into different combinations of animals, like they could return to be part deer or bird for its intelligent sensitivities, part rabbit for its ability to procreate, or cougar for its elegant fierceness, and possibly part bee so they could pollinate the beautiful gardens at Chapultepec Park. The peoples of that time thought they could return to this earth as all of those creatures. Imagine that. You can see why the Aztecs offered to sacrifice themselves on those altars, offered to have the priests tear their hearts out to appease the gods so that others like those that scream below the temple, could have another day in the sun. What a better, more honorable end could a spirit's vessel have? Francisco intervened. Let me help explain metaphors, he told Janny. Look, he said, addressing Max. Janny was using an old-fashioned metaphor when she used the word vessel to refer to a human. Another way of putting it would be to say that a person was a suitcase that was filled with spirits. Do you understand now? Francisco asked. I really do. I think I do, Max now truthfully replied. But what I really want to know about are the serpents we have hanging on our walls. What we have on our walls are plume serpents, Janet replied. They are actually part bird, and now that you have learned about metaphors, you will be able to understand them. In Mexico, there had been droughts where the land has dried up, where almost nothing was left living. The few humans that survived believed the world was coming to an end. One day, serpents emerged through the cracks in the earth at the scent of moisture in the air, and the rains came. They became a symbol of hope and survival. How naturally they'd be combined with birds that flew to ensure that messages were received by the gods that resided in the heavens, messages asking them for the gift of sun or rain. You mean our serpents are good? But I thought all snakes were bad, Jenny. That's what I thought. We are often afraid of things we don't understand, my bird, Jenny replied. Then make us understand how the Aztec priests could lie innocent people up and tear out their hearts, Jenny. Most of them were captives. They didn't want to die. How could thousands watch? They were bloodthirsty people, Jenny. How could you believe any of it was interesting, Francisco asked. The Aztecs, all of our ancient peoples for that matter, are a history lesson on the human condition, Francisco. We can study them and recognize who we are. I like the idea of my spirit living on through another life, but I do not like the idea of man killing man, or animal, for that matter. Or bird jamming, or bird man squatting, although over time he had become conditioned to Janet and Francisco being carnivores. I have eaten so many Porky the pigs, Elsie the cows, and other living creatures, Janny said, but I try to keep this carnage out of my reality. When I catch myself watching live coverage of innocent victims of war being killed, cultures being wiped out, nature being destroyed, while I sit there and watch it on television, I wish I belonged to another species. I have to view it as though I were a fox or jaguar. Or can you blame a carnivore for being a carnivore? The only difference between us and the Aztecs is we do not look into the faces of the victims and scream. How terrible! How awful! Even some of my own species are killers. But there is a solution. There is, Max said, as he jumped up and down, all a twitter, wingtip pointed into the air. We don't have to think about bad things. We don't have to know what the world is doing outside of our cage. We can sell that television. I don't watch television anyway.
You don't have to make excuses for being human, Janny. You have a good soul.
Okay, I'm going to, after we have 15 minutes here, think I'll read a letter. I have time to read, instead of reading the preface, I have time to read a little bit from chapter 8, a letter to Tweet, which also has to do with our bird here. And a letter to Tweet. Max watched Jenny write letters to her sister. He noticed that she never put them in an envelope, that they were never mailed. He saw her tuck them away in a locked drawer. Why are you writing letters that you don't send? Max asked. I don't write them to send, Max. I write them to get things that are bothering me off my chest. Max decided it was time to feel more human, to extract the truth that he, Max Bird, had been denied. I have things that need to be said too, things that have been bothering me. I want to write to my sister. Will you help me, Jenny? As Jenny began typing, she assured Max he could be absolutely honest with her. Max wished he could write the letters in private by himself as he went into a dream state and pretended like he was. To Tweet. I love you, Tweet. On that long ride from Mexico's forest lands in the back of an unmarked van, driven by an underground bird marketer, we had the privilege of being housed next to the toucan. On mountain curves on the way to the international bird smuggling market, you, Tweet, my beloved sister, hung on to the side of the cage that was nearest to him, as if making an attempt to rub feathers with a bird who turned out, I know now, to be one of the winners in the sweepstakes of pet bird life. I didn't care. We were just babies, didn't even have enough sense to know anything. We survived just by chance, having never experienced a normal life. We had never had seeds digested, served to us warmly regurgitated from our mother's throat in a way that would have been in harmony with nature. But nevertheless, we were able to hang on to our lives bravely. The toucan commanded respect just by his posture. Without thinking, you gravitated to his side, looking for protection. You gazed at him with your unknowing eyes, maybe not comprehending that he was not the one that was your brother, the one that would have cut off his feathers for you. Oh, Tweet, how I wish I could have protected you. How I wish I could have matured overnight and grown flight feathers and tucked you into my breast and flown us off to find others of our species, brothers and sisters of an extended family that we could perch with in a natural breeze. I'm so sorry my first thought was for my own survival, hoping for more downy feathers to ward off my cold, more pablum to feed my stomach, less joggling on the road. I'm sorry I did not convey this to you, Tweet, but maybe I did. I only know that I hate that toucan. He is a nothing. Yet I heard he was flown to the U.S. slickness itself to live in posh places. I can only admire for his big bones, wavy beak, and because his colors look good together. My anger festers because I lost you, because of the irreversible thrust of what our life turned out to be. I held your sweet memory to the down of my breast, and the vision of your feathers I still hold dear. Yes, I must release them to the flow of what once was, if I'm ever to build a life for myself here in these strange waters on an island surrounded by weaving studios and artists and the strange ideas and values of humankind. I have been granted the position of director of publicity at Aztec Art Gallery, a unique position to be granted a humble honor. I tried to keep frustration under feathers, but last night I got to mother. Her wings flapped as she descended from the rain clouds with my breakfast. I woke up and let out one loud squawk and protested me being here, sitting on a ceramic tile countertop, facing an ancient loom, enslaved to captivity. To my distress, my patrona, Janny, who thinks she owns me, woke from her sleep and came running. Good grief, my greedy poo. Is everything all right? I'm right here with you, she explained, removing the striped jarabi that kept me warm at night. How insulting. How can I be able to expect to hang on to my masculinity in a situation like this? I turned my tail to her and perched facing the rear wall, my weak in line with his corner. She has the habit of collecting cats, whose noses I always have to scratch. Now, why would a person with a parrot want to collect cats? I can only cope with this by thinking about that toucan, about how he is probably also pinned in a cage, in a rage, and may not have the upside that I do. Please forgive me, Tweet, for I think I will become human, and from that I can never return. It is a one-way journey. You see, I have come to love them because they love me, and because you are not here, and may be pleased to be. Your one and only brother, now known as Max Bird. P.S. I will see you in eternity. You forgot to be kidding me, Francisco protested after Max showed him the letter the following morning. I thought you and Janie were writing something of importance, but this letter is just a whole lot of whining. What? Max squawked. He had not expected that anyone would say bad things about writing to a lost sister. Francisco's harsh opinion hurt. You are acting like a gringo, Francisco went on as he stretched out one leg macho style and planted his foot on the floor for emphasis. And your letter is not even written in Spanish. Are you from north of the border? Why do you ask me to help you? Am I now the only Mexican in this house? You are? I mean, you're not? Max stuttered, wiping a tear from his eye. But you don't suffer over your past life like Janny and I do. You are so matter of fact. I do suffer, Max, but I don't wallow in it. I suffer when there's nothing to eat. I suffer when I am in pain and when I lose someone I love. I do not suffer from guilt. Guilt is something people create for themselves when there is no justifiable suffering, Francisco told Max. But don't you ever feel sorry? Of course, lots of times. When I do something that is not right, I am sorry. I try not to do the same thing again. And then, that is it. Case closed. But guilt? Guilt is not normal for Mexicans. We don't have time for it. Janny said that we need to face up to the truth. That's what I was doing. I was not whining, Francisco. Okay, I guess I was wrong. I am sorry I jumped on you. Maybe I felt a little jealous. But I'm angry that you slammed Janny like you did in that letter. You need to tell her that you are sorry for calling her your patrona. Sorry that you had her type up those nasty things you said about her, twerping away on her shoulder as she typed it up. You should feel ashamed right now. That's how you should feel, Max. Your behavior, the behavior of both you and Janny, is unbelievable. If all of us were at liberty to speak the truth whenever it appeared, there would be nothing but misery in this life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I do, maestro, Max replied, feeling bruised, realizing what an unjust thing he had done to Janny, thinking that Francisco was right about not always telling the truth, yet knowing that dishonesty would not fix the wrong he had done. But Janie said the truth would bite you if you denied it. Knowing the truth and wanting to hear it are two different things. Do you always have to ask so many questions? Look, Max, you live the human life. That's fine. And you choose to identify with those gringos. That's fine too. But you must remember that they have time to create ways to make their life miserable. I must tell Janny that maybe a gallery director is not who I am. Actually, Max said, I am police officer material. Good grief, Max, that is ridiculous. What would the police department do with a bird? A lot, my maestro. I have superior hearing, and as far as I know, I'm the only bird that talks. Who else can give them the information they need to go after those wild bird marketers who held freedom in captive? How can I live this life with you and feel right about it? When they continue to sell birds into slavery, while I do nothing to stop it. It is late and Janny is still in bed, and I am afraid you have done more damage to her than you realize. That is what you should be thinking about. I'm sorry I said those bad things about Janny, Francisco. I wasn't thinking. How could I put things back the way they were? You can't, Max. All you can do is repair some of the damage. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, you want me to? Oh. Oh, we're on. Everyone is invited to our gallery. It's a mile west of Ajijic, just before you get to the Santa del Sol sign. You'll see my serpent mural on the road. And we have, my neighbors have fixed a tole, chocolate tole, and we have cookies. And of course we'll sign our books in. Over here, under the tree, there's postcards. If anybody wants a postcard, be free to take one, and you'll see the address of the studios. So if anybody would like to come right afterwards, you're invited. We would love to have you.
Thank you for such an imaginative reading. And tell me just one thing, Janice. I kept looking and thinking that's a little bird.
It's a baby.
It's a baby.
This
A human baby?
This is a Mayan princess, and this is the serpent with the god that is the god of that watches guardians over infants.
I see. Well, wonderful.
Margaret, please.
Yes, Janice declined to have a question and answer period, but just a moment.
If you want to help me, I can.
Well, I just need to say the woman is a marvel. And those of us who have seen her go through this great circle of change, and one of them was Patricia Hemingway. And you have helped us understand what a family is. His family is a gringo, a Mexican, and a bird. And she uses metaphors as well as any human being I've ever known. And I'm so glad you read page 139, which is my favorite page, about the soul with all of its facets. So if there's anybody here who doesn't buy a book I would call you foolish.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes, it is. We've kind of run out of time, and I have a very special announcement about next week. I hope that all of you understand it won't be here. We're going to be at Club Exotica, as we were a couple of weeks ago for Don Aitken. We are so fortunate to have Manuel Aguilar back. He's one of the world's scholars and authorities on everything Mayan, as well as Mexican art history. You may recall that he came last year. We need to move there so that he can show us his slides. People here told him that the subject for this year that they were most interested in is Maya culture, the hieroglyphs, and 2012. Although most of us by now think that's a lot of whatever. Anyway, we hope that you'll be there. I'd suggest arriving around 10. Parking may be a problem. We'll start at 10:30 on the dot, and he'll go until noon. So do try and make that. It's very, very special. So that concludes our program today. Turn your cell phones back on and pick up your coffee cups. Stack the chairs. And, well, happy Hanukkah, whether it applies or not. Hope to see you next Sunday at our new place. Yes, and I hope all of you can make it to Janice's studio.